We welcome you into the Cross Country Mortgage Campus in Berea. It is roster cut down day, and it is an annual podcast tradition for the best podcast available. Normally, we're doing this on a Saturday at about 4 or 5 o'clock on Labor Day weekend. Today, we come to you on a Tuesday late afternoon as the Browns' initial 53-man roster has been set. I'm Jason Gibbs alongside Andrew Gribble, and Gribbs, 25 players on offense, 25 players on defense, 3 specialists, and you are at 53 players as we get ready for Kansas City and the 2021 regular season.
Yeah, this was not a lot of surprises, I would say, and that's usually a good thing. And I think that's more of you understand, you've got your finger on the pulse of the team and understand this team's got a lot of good players. So really it was all about kind of these final 4 or 5 spots. And I think the big story is for the Browns is you have the final 50 or the initial 53 today. Then what happens tomorrow? What goes on with players who are dealing with injuries? What happens with waiver claims? I mean, there's a lot more moving pieces to get the best 53 out there for that first week 1 game. I think it's going to look a little different by the time you get to that Chiefs game, but ultimately the foundation of this team, we knew where it was. I mean, we're not getting surprised by guys we thought were going to be starters who aren't here. I mean, this is the final few spots of the roster, and that's a testament to the work Andrew Berry's done over the past few years in getting this roster to a point where when you look at it, as I described in the story, this roster is a tale of the 2 off seasons of Andrew Berry in terms of what he did on offense in 2020 and what he's done on defense in 2021.
All right, let's get things going for you, Browns fans. Placed on the reserve injured list, otherwise known as IR, Greg Forbes, Greg Senat, also placed on the injured list, both with knees. Now, Gribbs, from an injured list and an IR standpoint, if it's prior to 4 o'clock tomorrow, they're done for the year. But after 4 o'clock tomorrow, things are a little different. Yes, that is true.
Yeah, that's why those 2 are special mentions in the story. I mean, those 2 guys, if they are out for the season with their injuries. So tough blow for Drew Forbes, who again, he's been with the Browns on the field for 2 seasons. Both times he suffered a pretty serious injury in the preseason finale. So tough break for Drew Forbes and Greg Senat, another guy that they were high on with raw upside and kind of growing into that tackle position. But they are on the roster. They are just out for the season right now.
Yep, indeed. So the rest of the players waived, including safety Elijah Benton, wide receiver Jamarcus Bradley, tight end Jordan Franks, guard Colby Gossett, defensive end Porter Gustin, linebacker Willie Harvey, wide receiver Kaderl Hodge, defensive end Joe Jackson, running back John Kelly, quarterback Kyle Lauletta, defensive end Cameron Malveaux, tight end Kyle Markway, safety Javonte Moffitt, center Javon Patterson, safety Sheldrick Redwine, cornerback Emmanuel Rugamba, linebacker Tigray Scales, fullback Johnny Stanton IV, tackle Alex Taylor, defensive end Curtis Weaver, defensive tackle Marvin Wilson. In addition, the team has terminated the contracts of cornerback Brian Allen, defensive tackle Sheldon Day, linebacker Elijah Lee, wide receiver JoJo Natson, and then placed on the reserve, suspended by commissioner list, Davion Davis, the wide receiver, out for a couple of games for an incident that happened back when he was with Minnesota in 2019. Let's get right down to the offense and what your offense looks like here in 2021 as it stands on the final day of August 2021. 25 players on offense, Gribbs, 22 on the team last year. And you're running back a lot of guys, and you've got some reinforcements coming in the form of draft picks as well.
Yeah, I think that stat with 22 out of 25 is unprecedented for this Browns franchise since it came back in 1999. And really, when you break it down even further, 20 of those 22 were on the roster week 1. So this is the only 2 guys who joined the team midway through the year were Michael Dunn and Blake Hance. So a lot of stability, and you knew this coming in. I mean, this is you had so much change in the previous offseason, but then you just bring everyone back. That group played so well together, and now the majority of them are back, and the only 3 that are new were all draft picks. So not a single free agent signing, in this offensive group. And it's just that's what you're hoping for, and why people are so high on this offense. It's the same coaches, the same players, and the same good players that you had last year that made this one of the better offenses in the league by the end of the season last year.
And it starts at quarterback. Baker Mayfield, Case Keenum will be your quarterback room. Kyle Lauletta waived by the football team. There are some reports out there that there may be a third quarterback joining our squad here at some point, but obviously a lot to happen before that becomes a reality. But your two quarterbacks, Baker and Case Keenum, and you feel pretty good, obviously, about that situation. On the running back side of things, Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, Andy Janovich makes it as your fullback, Demetric Felton, and Dearness Johnson. I know that there were some questions going into that third preseason game, but Dearness has been a pro's pro, and he's done everything that's been asked and then some, and a solid running back and a solid guy to stay with this football team, Gribbs.
Yeah, it's an interesting group because I think that clearly, I think the story of this group is what Demetric Felton did. It just impressing in multiple spots. I thought he looked good as a returner on Sunday as well, which just makes him even more valuable to this team, because he's going to have to play a lot of special teams as well. There's going to be some offensive looks for him, but the majority of the work he's going to do is on special teams. And it's more, he was the last pick of your 8 draft picks. And I think when we looked at that draft, you're like, how are they going to get all 8 of these guys on the team? And the reason why all 8 got on this team is probably because of the performance of your bottom 2 guys, Richard LeCounte and Demetric Felton. I mean, both of those guys are on this team, and they earned it. I mean, they played well at camp, they played well in the preseason, and they made it so Andrew Berry simply couldn't get rid of them.
Tight ends right now, the Browns with just 3 after cutting the other guys in the past 24 hours. We'll see how that transforms from a waiver wire standpoint, and also from that 16-person practice squad that the Browns will be putting together here in the coming hours. But right now, 3 tight ends: Austin Hooper, David Njoku, and Harrison Bryant.
Yeah, that was your 3-man battery last year that did the majority of the work, and that'll be it again. I think the Carlson injury obviously freed up a roster spot that you could use elsewhere. It's just going to be interesting to see what you do with that. You do have some flexibility at the practice squad. You can bring guys up on game day a couple times during the season. And you could also add someone via waivers, but that's a tough position to find bodies at. I mean, this is a position that a lot of teams are looking for, because backup tight ends do so much on special teams. And also tight end is a position where it's physical. These guys get hurt a lot. You need some options at that position. So I don't know if 3 is going to be the number you see for Kansas City, but that's what it is right now. And it's a good group of 3. I think the Browns are in good shape at this spot.
Yeah, Steven Carlson, maybe his most valuable snaps the last couple seasons on special teams. So yeah, going back to what you said, the wide receiver room, you're going to have 5 wideouts: Jarvis Landry, Odell Beckham Jr., Donovan Peoples-Jones, Anthony Schwartz, and Rashard Hollywood Higgins. No KhaDarel Hodge, and that was one that we were watching as things were getting down to the wire here from a cut-down standpoint. And unfortunately, KhaDarel not making it. But as you and I were talking about before we started recording, there's a path for KhaDarel to come back to this football team.
Yeah, it's just a matter of what happens over the next 24 hours. I think there's going to be a lot of players who got cut today that get claimed by other teams tomorrow. KhaDarel could be one of those guys. I mean, he's certainly talented, valuable on special teams, and I think he looked like an improved pass catcher as well during the preseason with 2 touchdown catches, and consistently a guy that seemed to make big plays. I think all of his catches last year went for first downs, just seemingly always finds a way to get open when he's given the opportunity. So again, it's a testament to the depth of this room. I think it starts with Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham. Donovan Peoples-Jones was the story of training camp with how he's emerged. I think Rashard Higgins is a guy that, when if you are without Jarvis Landry or Odell Beckham Jr., Higgins is a guy that can step in and perform. And I think that's the biggest value he has in that room, is that he's seasoned, he's done it before, and he can step in and help out if one of those 2 guys gets injured. And then Anthony Schwartz is the X factor, I think, with his speed. He's gotten healthy now. And we saw him in that preseason finale that he can maybe help this team out in ways that he has a set of skills that are not replicated in that group.
I thought it was really key. It's one of the big takeaways from that final preseason game, the fact that Schwartz was able to get on the field and give some productive snaps, had a couple catches, and got his feet wet in the National Football League.
Yeah, it's good to see. I mean, he's battled this hamstring injury. I think it's just one of those things when you're a super fast guy and you want to perform at a high level. It's just you want to make sure that hamstring is fully healed, because we've seen it with Grant Delpit now as well. If that thing's not 100% healed, it just takes one cut and you're back to square one. So hopefully he's back and good to go, and he can kind of give the offense a little bit different element than what it had at the end of last season.
10 offensive linemen: Jedrick Wills, Joel Bitonio, J.C. Treader, Wyatt Teller, Jack Conklin, obviously, James Hudson III, Michael Dunn, Nick Harris, Blake Hance, and Chris Hubbard. So 10 offensive linemen. The big question becomes, how's the health of Michael Dunn? And that's a pretty big number for a position group to keep going into a regular season.
Yeah, it's one where I think there's a couple reasons to it. One, I think you mentioned the Michael Dunn injury is something where we haven't seen him in a couple weeks, and you wonder, is that one of your potential moves in the coming 24 hours to free up a spot by putting him on IR designated to return? So that's a potential move up their sleeve. Blake Hance, I think, showed this team that he can be really versatile playing guard and center. So now you have maybe 3 guys on this roster you feel comfortable with snapping the ball. And then I think you throw in the other one. James Hudson, I think, is the reason why this group could stay heavy throughout the year, because I think he's someone that clearly has acknowledged he is a developing tackle. His best days are ahead of him as a player. But you usually don't see 2 swing tackles kept the way the Browns have with him and Hubbard. But I think that's an indication where if you're in a pinch, you need a swing tackle to come in as your 6-man. Chris Hubbard is probably your guy. And so you don't want to put James Hudson in a position where early week one of your tackles goes down. You don't want to have to throw in the rookie in there in such a key moment. So I think that's another reason why the room looks like it does at this moment.
Well, and I thought the Browns through the 3 preseason games did a great job of rotating him. Number one, he played, I think, every offensive snap for 3 games. But the fact that he played left tackle for a half and then a right tackle spot for the half, and he and Hubbard would actually flip-flop on Sunday night. But I thought it was good. The more reps you can give him at both of those positions, the better off he's going to be.
Yeah, no, I just think he's someone who behind the scenes is going to develop and continue to develop. And I think you want to get him more comfortable at that right tackle spot. I think that he's talked about it's one of those where he's starting so fresh and so new to that spot that he actually has better habits at right tackle than he does at left tackle. So you just want to get him comfortable at both, and then maybe down the line, do you start working him at guard some, make him as versatile as possible, because that's the fastest way to get on the field.
All right, on to the 2021 Browns defense. This is the initial 53-man roster. Obviously, a lot of things still to come as we get into waiver claims, IR, and frankly, just picking that free agent wire and seeing what's out there here as a lot of players, unfortunately, hitting the market today throughout the National Football League. On the defensive side of the football, though, 25 players on defense. 12 new faces, though, for that defense. Could have as many as 7 new starters. It starts on that defensive line. Your 8 defensive linemen: Myles Garrett, Malik Jackson, Andrew Billings, Jadeveon Clowney, Tack McKinley, Jordan Elliott, Malik McDowell, and Tommy Togiai. A lot of youth, some good veteran presence there as well, though. A little bit of star power on that defensive line, but the biggest thing that stands out right now, you have 3 true defensive ends, Andrew Gribble.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one where you wonder what's the moves that are left to be made, because I don't know if you can take 3 defensive ends into a game. I mean, you're usually carrying 4 or 5, and you make 4 active on game day. Because I think, especially the way they like to rotate these defensive ends, you want to keep Myles and Clowney fresh for the fourth quarter. You can't have them on the field every single play in the first 3 quarters if you want them performing at their best when it matters most. But clearly, to me, the story of the group, maybe one of the bigger stories in the NFL right now, is Malik McDowell. I mean, this is someone who I think most of us just assumed he was coming in, and maybe you get him onto the practice squad and let him to continue to shake the rust off behind the scenes there. But the last 2 preseason games in particular, he showed why you can't let him even be exposed to the waiver wire. This is someone who is completely disruptive, just kind of changing the game out there as in the fourth quarter against the Giants, and then even in the first half against the Falcons. I mean, this is a guy that looks like a former second round pick that you go back to that draft. Many people thought he was going to be a first round pick. This was a first round talent that was selected in the second round. He's gone through his issues. He's overcome them, and now he's coming back. And this is definitely he may not be your starter, may not play a ton right away, but he's certainly a first off the bus guy, a menacing physical presence on that defensive line that they simply had to keep around because he proved to be one of your best 53.
Yeah, and he continued to just make more and more plays as the preseason wore on, and really showed up and showed out in that Sunday night game against the Atlanta Falcons. The linebackers, 7, Mac Wilson, Anthony Walker, Sione Takitaki, Malcolm Smith, Jacob Phillips, Tony Fields II, and Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Obviously, some decisions to be made with Jacob Phillips. I think that's the one that stands out. But the other one, Tony Fields II, making this 53-man roster after really not being available for most of the offseason.
Yeah, it's a tricky situation, but it's one of those where I don't know if you're ready to give up on a guy you drafted and scouted just because he wasn't able to participate in training camp because of the unfortunate foot injury, his second one since joining the team. So it's tough, and we'll see what his role could be. Obviously, clearly you don't expect him to be out there a ton early in the season, but maybe he's someone that can develop behind the scenes and get on your special teams. Because right now we mentioned no Elijah Lee. That was his key special teams contributor for this team last year. You either need to maybe hopefully bring him back, or you get someone else that can fill that role. JOK is another guy to watch out for on special teams as well. This is, I think Prefer mentioned him last week. He's going to be someone that's out there helping you out on special teams and potentially making a run to start on this team as well. So it's a lot moving around. I think we can all assume, not for sure, but you assume that Jacob Phillips is one of your moves tomorrow to get him designated to return. But the good news is that means there's some legitimate hope that he can come back this year. And I think that's good news for him.
Absolutely. It's good news. And the veteran Malcolm Smith in that room to kind of lead things back after a really solid year for this football team.
Yeah, I mentioned that in the story too. You've added Super Bowl and playoff experience to each level of this defense. So you have Malik Jackson on the defensive line. You've got Anthony Walker in the middle, who's played in some playoff games, and Malcolm Smith, obviously a Super Bowl MVP. And then in the back end of the defense with John Johnson III, played in a ton of big games with the Rams. I mean, leadership was clearly coveted with this defense, as well as upgrading the talent. And now you have them at every level of the defense.
Defensive back room. We'll start with the corners: Denzel Ward, Greedy Williams, Troy Hill, Greg Newsome, AJ Green. Because MJ Stewart is classified as a safety. That is what we are being told here as the cuts are announced on the 53-man roster. The initial 53-man roster is out. Your safeties are Ronnie Harrison Jr., John Johnson III, MJ Stewart, Grant Delpit, and Richard LeCount III. Again, Sheldrick Redwine cut from the football team, but again, there's a pathway for him to come back. But 5 corners, 5 safeties, I feel like that's a room that could be in flux as well here over the next couple of days.
Yeah, it's interesting with MJ Stewart because this is real inside baseball. But, some teams, including the Browns of the past, used to just label everyone DBs. And that made your roster. A couple of years ago, we switched it up, made it a little more specialized. Some people are CBs, some people are safeties. MJ Stewart, I think, to me, is a true DB for this team because I think in a pinch, he's probably your backup slot guy out there because he's got the skill set. He's played it before, but I think he also helps you out as your 5th safety as well. So you've got some versatility with that group. We all know about Grant Delpit's versatility, but you don't know if he's ready to go for week 1 just yet because he hasn't practiced a ton with this team over the past 2 years. But then you've got, obviously, you're clearly looking good at corner as well. And I think for someone like AJ Green to make this team, I think that's a testament to how much he's improved because he is a true outside corner. We haven't seen him much in the slot. So I think that you probably obviously work on his versatility, but he is your true outside corner that I think can continue to develop. But someone who I think a lot of people expected a lot of last year because he was a high profile undrafted free agent. But this is, again, showing some patience, keeping him on the practice squad, developing him, getting him ready. And all of a sudden that pays off now in year 2.
When you look at this defense as a whole, your first thought is what?
It's that it's incomplete. I would say like clearly the talent is so much better. I'll start with that. But I think this is the area where you've still got some moves to make to get to week one, because you wonder, just the defensive end question is the big one. And then I'm curious, I just, because of how you rested guys in the preseason, I don't know what the defensive tackle rotation even is going to be. I think we obviously assume Malik Jackson's going to play a bunch. Andrew Billings, you wonder, is he going to be out there for 2 downs, and then how you rotate it that way? I really don't have a sense, especially because Sheldon Day just played a ton in the preseason, and now he's no longer on the team. So I'll be curious to see how much are they really working in Jordan Elliott. Is Tommy Togi as someone that's going to be active on game days? I mean, there's a lot of questions there that we're going to figure out. And I think because of injuries and because of different things, I don't even know who the starting linebackers are outside of Anthony Walker on this team right now, because you've seen Mac Wilson in there. You've seen Sione Takitaki in there when he's healthy. We saw JOK in there for the Giants game starting. So I think there's some unsettled areas of that defense, but clearly the talent has been upgraded.
Yeah, there's no question the talent is there, but I do agree. Things to watch over the next 2 to 3 days here before everybody departs for an extended Labor Day weekend, which I don't remember.
I don't know how to function. I don't know what I'm going to do with myself.
Correct. Your 3 specialists: Jamie Gillen, your punter, Chase McLaughlin is your kicker, and Charlie Hewitt, your long snapper. Maybe a room to watch as well here over the next 7 to 10 days before week 1 of the regular season kicks off.
Yeah, with having Kevin Stefanski and Mike Preview saying the competition's not over, I would be safe to say the competition is still not over. It's something to keep an eye on. I mean, there's a lot of kickers that are hitting the wire today. You don't necessarily have to claim one. You can bring one into your practice squad, hold a little bit of a competition over the next week, and then potentially make a decision down the road. There are kickers that are available or becoming available who have kicked in big games. I think the biggest name I've seen so far today was Michael Badgley over with the Chargers. That's someone that's kicked in this league for a few years now. There are some options out there, and it's all about how this group has ranked them. And you always have your list of guys, if they become available, how you view them. And we'll see. So I think they're going to keep their eyes open for these guys. And you do have the ability via the practice squad to have at least a mini competition and not just sign someone and get rid of your current kicker. You can do a little bit more than that because of the timing that the NFL has afforded with getting rid of this final preseason game.
Yeah, it's nice not having to get ready for a game on a Thursday that frankly was tough.
Yeah.
It was tough to take in. And it's going to be fascinating this week because teams really have their work cut out for them. But now there's tape of players. Last year there was no preseason. So now you've got tape where you've got a chance to take a look at all these guys that are going to be hitting the free agency market and the waiver wire and who picks who. So to recap, waiver tomorrow. Waiver claims can start coming tomorrow, what, at noon? Am I correct?
Yeah, it's usually like noon / early afternoon. You put them in today and then you see what happens tomorrow. And then you have the flexibility of you start putting your practice squad together, and then you can make some moves with IR as well. So there's a bunch of 3 different things to kind of keep your eye on in terms of roster moves. I would say this is a day in my time with the Browns have never been quiet on. Even last year when I didn't expect many waiver claims, they still made waiver claims. Both of them, I believe there's more than 2, but the one that comes to mind is Vincent Taylor was a waiver claim last year, and he was a key rotational defensive tackle all season. So you get some good players on this in the team. Kaderl Hodge, way back when, was a waiver claim after roster cuts. Tavier Thomas, who played some good football for the team for the past few years, he was a waiver claim. So there's some good players to be had that even when you're a team as good as we expect the Browns to be, there's guys that become available who maybe fit your system better than they fit someone else's, and they can make an impact right away.
Yeah, and guys that are going to go on IR that aren't out for the entire season that you hope to have back, you can't put them on IR till 4:00 on Wednesday. So
yes,
something to watch here as things play out. We do believe that'll happen here with a couple players. Final thoughts from you on this roster and on this team and what you've seen here in preseason and in training camp.
Yeah, it's one of those where this is kind of the next step closer to the regular season. I think that the Browns really built this roster in a way that made this this decision day both excruciating in terms of the tough decisions that they had to make, but also not as much of a headline making story because you're not releasing, guys that people thought were going to be starters. I think this is all bottom of the roster guys, depth positions. And I think fans were certainly attached to some of these guys. And I understand the frustration that goes with that, but this is the reflection of a roster that's much improved. And I think, you don't have to worry about, you don't have any stunning moments like the Patriots had today with releasing a guy that was competing for the starting quarterback job. I mean, you don't have that, and that's a good thing. I think that's where this franchise is at with the stability and the injection of talent. And I think it's made, and I think a lot of people have said this, it's made for kind of a boring preseason and a boring set of roster cuts, because that means the regular season is going to be a lot more enjoyable.
On to KC and the 2021, I should say, regular season 2021. Had to do the math. There's a lot of numbers going on right now as we play the numbered game with the roster. Thanks to Jeff McDaniel for all of his hard work. We'll keep you apprised of the latest at clevelandbrowns.com, the Browns mobile app, also Browns social media platforms, and daily on Cleveland Browns Daily from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. with Bo Bishop and Nathan Zagura. For Andrew Gribble, I'm Jason Gibbs. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening to the best podcast available.